So here at Mid-America Truck Show in Louisville, Kentucky, this is 2023, and you know, it's always great to be here and meet drivers, and not just drivers, but drivers' families face to face is fantastic to be able to do that and get to know them, because I'm gonna tell you, we get a lot of Oakley owner operators make a priority to come to this show and bring their families. Some of them, it's a family vacation, and we enjoy meeting them face to face. It means a lot to us too. And of course, we got a great booth. If you've never seen it, it's fantastic. We got couches you can sit down, and we always run free PSPs. We got a little TV going, and the last couple of years we've been doing live interviews. Well, not live interviews, but podcast interviews here at the show, and then putting them out after that. So we've always got some great stories here, and I try to find good ones for you guys, for our listeners, to help you be successful as an independent contractor. And the one I have today, I think, is a success story that is fantastic, but also can help you guys down the road. I'm sure a lot of our owner-operators know who I'm talking about when I talk about Pittsburgh Power. So today I've got Bruce Mallinson sitting with me with Pittsburgh Power, and going to visit with him a little bit about Pittsburgh Power and what's going on with Pittsburgh Power these days. But I also, the main, I think, is the story of Bruce Mallinson. I think that's an intriguing story. Before we get into it, Bruce, I visited with one of our owner-operators, Joe McCullough.
Yeah.
And what do you call him? Cape
Cod Joe.
Cape Cod Joe. And, you know, he gave me some insight on you. So he gave me a little intel there to find out, and some things to ask you. So I'll be asking some of those questions. But he was super excited about you coming on the Oakley Podcast, because he knows what kind of good man you are, and your story is good. So Aero Truck Sales has been in business for over 60 years and a longtime partner of Oakley Trucking and the Oakley Podcast. Trey Visor and Keith Wilson do a great job at putting you in the right truck to fit your needs and our needs here at Oakley. They carry all makes and models to choose from, with on-site financing through transport funding. So whether you are a seasoned owner-operator or a first-time buyer, be sure to contact Keith Wilson at Aero Truck Sales at 573-216-6047 and tell him you heard it on the Oakley Podcast. Thanks for joining me. I appreciate you coming.
It's always our pleasure. You know, when you love trucks, you love talking about trucks.
All the time.
And it's just a way of life. It's been my way of life since I was 19 years old, got involved in the trucking industry, was going to community college, would work the midnight shift at Motor Freight Express and dock foreman and then road dispatch. And that's when I met my first owner-operator, was at Motor Freight. Guy hauled Red Wing shoes in from Minnesota, and we would cross-dock them and deliver them. And he drove a cab-over Chevrolet and wore a cowboy hat and had this big belt buckle and beautiful cowboy boots and about a 32-inch waist. And I just really enjoyed talking to that guy when I was 19 years old.
That's a fantastic memory.
Yeah. Wish if he was still alive and he hears this, I hope he comes and sees me.
You know, you were telling me a story a while ago of what got your gears turning when your dad bought a car when you were 16 years old.
Well, my dad had a 59 Chevy Impala convertible, 283, two-barrel Power Glide. I think they had 195 horsepower. In western Pennsylvania is all hills, but when that's what you learn to drive on, that's what you know. And so I was 16, had my learner's permit. He bought a brand new Impala SS 396, 4 on the floor, 325 horsepower. Naturally, we had Rochester Quadrajet 4-barrel on it. And the first time I drove that, I rolled into that throttle in second gear, and that shot up the hill, and I said, oh my gosh, what a difference. This is what horsepower and torque is all about. And, you know, I gave up golf. I gave up baseball. I was heavy into golf, heavy into baseball. And when I discovered the internal combustion engine at age 16, it changed my life.
No kidding. That's great. And you've been doing it ever since.
Ever since. Can't get away from it. You know, still a car guy, a truck guy, motorcycles, snowmobiles, turbocharged. Once you have a turbocharged snowmobile, you don't ever go back to a regular one.
Of course not.
Or a turbocharged car.
Of course not. So is that put that planted the seed for Pittsburgh Power. And how did Pittsburgh Power get started? Some notes. It was founded in 1977. Is that right?
Well, it actually was started. It was diesel injection in Pittsburgh by Chuck Passmore. I met Chuck in the Golden Triangle Water Ski Club, and we became really good friends. Guy loved to cook, and I loved to eat, and he was just a neat guy. And he had a '68 Corvette, 427, 390 horse, and it had leaky disc brakes. And a local Chevrolet dealer, this is in 1976, wanted $500 to fix it. Now, you have to go back and think of what $500 was worth in 1976. And I heard him telling somebody in our water ski club, I said, you know, Chuck, I have the parts to rebuild those in my Corvette shop. In the evening, I build race cars for people, and I also race, and that was my weekend job. Friday nights, I'd get home from my day job. I'd work all night till the sun was coming up Saturday morning.
Wow.
Work on Corvettes and race cars, and then go to bed for 4 hours and back into the garage. I loved garages.
Yeah.
And so I fixed Chuck's brakes they were $4 a piece for the kits. It was $16 and 2 hours labor. I couldn't charge him labor because he served me surf and turf dinner. We became best of friends. A year later, he said, I want to move to Tampa. Why don't you take over my diesel shop? It was a small, no garage. All he did was Cummins fuel pumps and injectors, an occasional water pump. So he showed me how to build a water pump, a fuel pump, and redo injectors. And he heads for Tampa, Florida, December 1st, 1977.
Wow.
And the rest
left it to you.
And the rest was history. I was in a storefront. My rent was $100 a month. $100 a month included natural gas.
Oh.
So, being a mechanic and I started meeting owner-operators, and I found out after about the second or third owner-operator that they're a bunch of gearheads just like me. Nothing wrong with that term gearhead,
Not
because
at all.
gearheads keep this country going. So I was a gearhead jock, and I still love sports, but if there's an engine with the sport, like snowmobiling or motorcycling, I even like it that much more.
Makes it more interesting.
Yeah, still like my downhill skiing. I've been skiing downhill for 60 years, boating and water skiing for 50 years, and snowmobiling for 30 years, and got into motorcycling in 97.
Wow. So you still water ski?
I kind of just, within the last couple of years, I've backed away from water skiing, but I still enjoy boating.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, that's impressive.
Yeah.
How old are you?
I'm 74 years old.
Well, you don't look it.
Well, I try not to. An old body's like driving a 1961 Pete every day. You got to work on it every day to keep it running. But every time you get something small wrong with your body, you got to go after that problem.
Yeah.
Just like with a semi-truck. If there's a small, minor problem, you've got to go after that problem, because small problems manifest into big problems.
Now, you still live in Pennsylvania?
I live part-time in Saxonburg, Pennsylvania, 5 miles from our shop. I spend a lot of time in the summer because I boat in the Chesapeake Bay in Edgewater, Maryland. And in the winter, I'm sharing my time between Florida and Colorado because I still like to ski and snowmobile.
Wow.
But
That's great.
my body is saying that it likes the warmth better than the cold now. I never thought that would happen.
You got family?
Yes. I got a daughter in Austin, Texas, and
Great.
And I got a brother and sister in Florida, not far from me, and I have a sister in Maryland. So I'm the youngest of 4.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so when you're the youngest, you don't know anything.
Right. Still don't.
No, you still don't. But anyway, Chuck Passmore came to me and asked me to take over his business, and that was December 1st, 1977, and I left my office job in downtown Pittsburgh. I was traffic manager for Loftus Engineering, and I wasn't working with my hands. I was working with a pen and pencil. And
Just didn't feel right?
We didn't have computers then, and I was on the 4th floor of One Oliver Plaza and had to ride a bus to and from the city. And I said, I went back in the shop. And I took that diesel engine shop, and we would ship pumps and injectors to and from Tampa, Florida, and he'd rebuild them. And in 1981, I was too busy and he couldn't keep up, so it cost me $35,000 for a machine to calibrate Cummins fuel pumps. 1981, $35,000 was like $3.5 million today.
Was that your first big investment into
my
the business?
First big investment. To get started, I borrowed from the bank $3,500 and spent it with Snap-on tools. Still have some of my first tools. An arbor press. We're still using the arbor press in the pump room to build fuel pumps that I bought for $350.
Wow.
And we're using that every day.
Are you?
That arbor press. And when I walk into the pump room and I see that, it brings back memories. So anyway, we bought this fuel pump machine, and then we had to get the comparator to do the Cummins injectors. And it just grew from there. And we took a 335. We would take a 335 had a 183 cc injector. So every 1,000 strokes, it put out 183 cc's of fuel. And we would set them up to 185, and a guy could notice that difference. I said, well, if 2 cc's make that much difference, what's 10 do? So we built a 193 versus 183, and I put them in Denny Stitt's A model Kenworth with a 335. And Western Pennsylvania has the 3 rivers and lots of bridges. We're going across the Highland Park Bridge, and he rolls his foot into it. He's smiling. He says, my God, this feels like passing gear. I said, you can notice that much of a difference? He said, absolutely. I said, well, if 10 cc's does that, what's 20 do? I came from the race car industry. In 1972, I set the track record at Nelson's Ledges Road Course in Warren, Ohio, and it held till 79. And I just never liked second place. And when I played baseball, if you were on my team, if you were screwing up, I was in your face. And I only weighed 145 pounds. But I always liked first place. Boy Scout camp, we would race canoes across Lake Tionessa. I had to be first. I'd paddle that canoe until my heart was coming out of my chest. But I've always had this. Every day I wake up, I want to improve. I want to improve my body. I want to improve work. I want to improve my personal vehicles. I want to improve stuff. And sometimes it's just cleaning and maintaining. Still change all my own oils and rotate my tires and stuff like that. Do my own brake jobs. I try not to do major work at this age, but I just like to improve things. And I'm having a real problem with a lot of the states not taking care of their roads in the United States. Our roads are just getting so bad, and especially inner cities. It's just so rough. And why aren't we improving our country? We're giving all this money away, and that's a terrible thing to me.
Yeah.
But so I met these owner-operators and found out they love a great running truck. And the better you make their truck run, the more they like to drive it. And the more they like to drive it, the more money they make, the more money they have to spend. And it's all a win-win situation with performance. A great running truck makes a guy love his truck. He takes better care of it. He treats it better. It actually gives better fuel mileage. It lives longer because it gets better care. A great running truck's like having a great wife.
Is that why? You think? I mean, a lot of your clients are independent contractors, aren't they, Bruce?
Some of them are small fleets.
Small fleets.
8, 10 trucks, maybe up to 28 trucks.
What do you do that's special for them? I mean, is it just improving their fuel mileage or their power or all the above?
Well, the first time it usually starts with a phone call. And my truck doesn't have much power. I need more power in the hills. I need better fuel mileage. So you talk about what engine do you have, what truck do you have. You talk about the exhaust system. A lot has to do with the exhaust system. If the exhaust system is choking, it'll choke the engine. If the turbocharger is too small, it chokes the engine. You need to know what turbo they have. They need to have a turbo boost gauge. That is the number one gauge for letting me know how your truck's running. And I want to know what your total boost is when you're pulling the hill with your foot on the floor. and I want to know what your boost is on the level at your cruising speed, whether it's 60, 65, 70, or 75. Cruising speed on the level, no wind blowing, loaded trailer. That's the important number.
That tells you a lot, huh?
It tells us what the fuel mileage is. If you're at 18, 20, 22 pound of boost, on the level, there's no fuel mileage. You need to be between 4 and 8 pound of boost to have the fuel mileage. And it's my job to get you there. So, and then we have to know what transmission you have, what gear ratio you have in the rears, what size tires, what tires you have, what air filter you're running, what the CFM of that air filter. So that's a lot involved. A semi-truck is like a race car. It's working all the time.
Yeah, that's a lot of information, but I guess that's, you can't just do one thing and that fixes it.
There's not one thing that fixes everything to give you the power, to give you the fuel mileage and engine longevity.
And you do all these services there at?
We do.
You just have one location, or?
We have one location, but we have about 145 dealers that sell our max mileage fuel-borne catalyst.
Okay.
And we'll get into that in a little bit later.
Okay. That's kind of what I was wondering. I'm sorry, I'm not real familiar with Pittsburgh Power.
That's all right.
But that's why I wanted you on, to learn about it and tell our listeners. I'm sure our listeners, especially our owner-operators, going, "You idiot, Jeremy, what, don't you know what's going on?" Like, no, I don't. That's why I'm asking the question, so I can find out. But, I got some, too. We talked about Joe sending me some stuff to ask you. And
let me say something about Joe.
Okay.
It's people like Joe that keep me from saying, I'm done. I'm retiring. Because when you talk to Joe, he's high on life.
Yep.
Cape Cod Joe. And there's so many like him in this industry, so many wonderful owner-operators. They're just a lot of fun to be with. We do an owner-operator snowmobile conference at the first weekend in March every year, usually in Colorado, Wyoming, Utah, Idaho. And we ride by day and have dinner and have a couple adult beverages and then sit around the fireplace. We talk about trucks. We talk about snowmobiling. We'd probably talk about women, but there's women there too. But it's so much fun to be away from trucks and be with these owner operators.
Yeah.
And if anybody needs help, you get stuck, your sled breaks or your pickup truck breaks, man, there's help. The camaraderie is second
the wealth
to
of
none.
knowledge probably that can fix anything with that
Right.
too. I know it's it's a whole nother episode, but the general public and the way they perceive truck drivers and independent contractors is just frustrating to me a lot of times, because they're not in it like we are and understand that these people are one, they're very smart, and they keep this country running. And I'm very appreciative of them, but the general public don't always realize that. You know what I mean, Bruce?
The general public thinks a truck is a truck.
Yep.
Lube Zone has opened a new location in Statesville, North Carolina. It's located north of Statesville on Highway 77, just west of Exit 59. Lube Zone services both single trucks and truck fleets, so whether you're driving through or you have a trucking company nearby, Lube Zone are the experts to turn to. Lube Zone's specialty is full-service oil changes that take approximately 30 to 40 minutes. They also offer tractor-trailer grease, gearbox service, generator service, reefer service, and DOT inspections. They also go the extra mile when it comes to quality control. What does that mean? That means your semi-truck is checked not just once, but twice to ensure all service and parts are good to go. Lube Zone does this so you can rest easy knowing that your truck is in top condition. No other service center knows semi-trucks better than Lube Zone. Check out lubezone.com for all their locations, and when you go in there, tell them you heard it on the Oakley Podcast.
But an owner-operator's truck is his livelihood. He loves that truck like he loves his family. And it's a special piece of equipment to him. Yeah. And it has to be treated as such.
Yeah.
And a general repair shop doesn't seem to realize that. A lot of truck dealers don't realize that. In our dyno and our engineering facility, when your truck's going on the dyno, we want you there. We want you. You can be in the truck. You can be in the control room watching the controls. You're talking to our electrical engineers. We've got 3 electrical engineers and 3 dynos. We're the only shop in North America that has that. And you have to have electrical engineers today because You have a computer on your transmission, a computer in the cab, a computer on the engine, and they all have to talk to each other.
How
And
are you
there's
keeping up
sensors.
with all that technology and
I
knowing?
hire electrical engineers.
You have to. You have to have the best, don't
I'm a
you?
mechanical guy. I need to see a piston pushing down on a connecting rod, turning a crankshaft, and turning gears. That's me.
Yeah.
I'm not electrical. So,
I guess it's been a challenge, like everything, dealing with these systems on the trucks that they came out with back in 09, the DEF.
well, it started in 03.
03, did
Yeah,
it?
with the EGR. It was an absolute nightmare. Well, the first nightmare was whenever they took and made the low sulfur fuel. It was killing O-rings and seals in fuel systems. And we didn't have electronic engines, and we had mechanical engines. And we had guys waiting in line with their fuel pump for us to rebuild their pumps. And the seals had to be redesigned. They had to go to Viton O-rings. Yeah, the ultra-low sulfur fuel was an absolute nightmare back in the 90s. And that was the first hit we took. And then we got over that hurdle. And then they did it a second time. They took aromatics out. They took paraffin out. They lowered cetanes. And diesel fuel isn't what it was whenever we were young, and neither is gasoline.
Yeah.
You know, when we were young and you were dumping gasoline into your lawnmower, vapors came out of the tank, and it's vapors that burn. Well, the vapors are gone. It's hard to believe that cars can run as good as they can. But 2003 EGR, putting soot. Diesel exhaust has soot in it. It doesn't hurt anything, but they put it back in the intake, and it was just clogging up everything.
That doesn't even make sense.
Oh, it was horrible. Now, the emissions of today are okay, but you still have to treat your fuel. If not, you're going to have problems. But we're going to get into that.
Okay.
So, 260,000 miles in 2003, 4, 5, and 6. Engines were being wore out because of the soot. Soot is very abrasive. If you looked at a piece of soot and you magnified it 1,000 times, it would look like a lump of coal. So it was just killing engines. And the warranties were skyrocketing. Cummins, Cat, Detroit, Mack, and they were all losing thousands or millions of dollars. So, and there's only one way they make that up, and they have to raise the price of parts, because they don't make a lot of money selling the engines to OEMs. They make money on parts. But today, an engine will run 1 million miles treated properly. So it's a long time before they sell parts. So
Right.
it's a tough situation for engine manufacturers. So then in 2008, we took another hit, the DPF. Guys, we're buying brand new trucks. They wouldn't run. The SDP Cat, the twin turbo, 2008. A fellow on with Passport Transport out of New Jersey. I won't say his name, but his first load of cars going to the West Coast, 28 breakdowns.
Oh my gosh.
28. Caterpillar was sued over that. He actually won. I mean, it was horrible. That was the engine that Caterpillar said to the U.S. government in 2009, we're done with the U.S. They built engines for the rest of the world, but not for the U.S. And it was a shame. It was a shame to lose Caterpillar. Fine operation. But Cummins stuck through it, and Cummins is doing really good with their emission systems. So that was a problem. And the problem continued. And then we got DEF. We got the urea. And now what do we do with this stuff? I'm telling you, it was hurdles. And it was tough. And everybody starts doing deletes, and the U.S. government doesn't want to hear
Yes.
that. But you're taking the man's livelihood away from him
Yes.
when his truck's sitting in a driveway. He's leasing a truck to try to make enough money to make payments on his new truck.
Yep.
Because if it won't run, you can't drive it. And then at this show in 2018, I met Dr. Jane Gates. And she was 4 booths down from us. And I saw this lady standing there, and it was Friday afternoon. And I said, I'm going to give this lady 5 minutes of my time, because Forrest Lucas and I from Lucas Oil are personal friends. And I love Lucas Oil products, and I know a lot about Lucas products, and I know what made his product great. I've spent time at his plant. I've spent time in his house. He's a great guy. He's also from Columbus, Indiana. Started driving his first truck at age 14. I think it was a 429 Ford gas. He couldn't wait to get out of high school to get home and deliver dirt. But anyway, Forrest is a great man. But I met Dr. Jane, and she has this chemical, max mileage fuel-borne catalyst. And to me, it was another chemical. And she said, we love your engineering department. We know all about your emissions testing equipment and your dynos, and we want to come and test for a couple days at your facility. Well, this usually shuts everybody up. I said, you're looking at $8,000 a day, $16,000 in 2 days. She said, that's no problem. Well, I'm surprised to hear that. She said, you're $92,000 a day less than Southwest Research in San Antonio. I said, hey, I know they're $100,000 a day. And that's really hurt the automotive industry, by the way. And that's a whole stories about that. And that's why you can't get a 5-speed or a 6-speed manual shift transmission in a Power Stroke Ford now. Because if it's an automatic versus a manual, it's two different tests. Why? Because of a transmission. Doesn't make sense.
Not at all.
We've lost a lot of common sense in this country.
A lot.
And so Dr. Jane and her partner, Brett Beal from San Diego, show up a week later. We have an ISX and a W9 2015, and our engineers go to work on it. And they ran that dyno and that truck for 2 days. And my lead electrical engineer came to me and said, Bruce, you've got to take a look at this product. We've decreased NOx by 30%. We've gained 14% in fuel mileage, but I don't really look at fuel mileage on a dyno because that's a controlled atmosphere.
Yeah.
Fuel mileage is tested on the highway. He said, but we had a 70% decrease in soot and carbon. I said, 70%. When you decrease soot and carbon by 70%, there's hardly any emissions or pollution for the DPF to take out. So they left us 12 gallons. This stuff's $225 a gallon. 1 gallon treats 3,200 gallons of fuel. It ignites 33% faster than standard diesel fuel. It burns hotter, cleaner, and quieter. Now why does it burn quieter? Why does it make an engine quieter? It increases the torque. That's where you get some fuel mileage sometimes. But by cleaning the engine, cleaning the inside of the engine, makes it live longer. You have 2 items that wear out an engine. One is silicon, which is ingested dirt that gets through the air filter system. And the other one is soot and carbon, which is a byproduct of burning fuel. Whether it's gasoline, whether it's natural gas has very little, but it still has some. But diesel fuel has a fair amount of it. But now we eliminate 70%.
What's the name of this product?
Max mileage fuel-borne catalyst.
Wow.
And it's available. All the Iowa 80 locations have it in stock, but there's about 145 dealers in North America that have it. So truck dealers are hesitant because 80% of their work is emissions, just like it was for us. Now we don't have any emissions work, even though we're a DPF Alternatives, DPF cleaning part of their franchise, and we can talk about that too. But we have very few emission problems because all of our customers are running the catalyst. It costs a penny a mile to use it, which is a lot. But no emission failures saves you 5 to 6 cents a mile.
Yeah, that's common sense.
How'd you like to go to a stockbroker and say, I'm going to give you $10,000 January 1st. January 1st of the next year, I want you to give me $60,000. That's the savings the catalyst does. It keeps people from going bankrupt with emission trucks.
Does it work in gasoline engines?
Well, Dwayne Erkey, good friend of mine, owner-operator, ex-dairy farmer, mechanic, snowmobiler, Harley rider, great guy from Wisconsin. A lot of good people in Wisconsin and Minnesota. He called me up He said, you know that 2011 CVO Ultra Classic you have that doesn't run right and doesn't get fuel mileage? I said, yeah. He says, you get home tonight, put 6 cc's of catalyst in it and top off the tank, take it for a ride. I said, you're kidding me. I said, you're putting it in gasoline? He said, you got to try it. See, that's the beauty of owner-operators. Owner-operators are mechanically inclined, a lot of them, and they're thinkers. You know, when they're driving out across Nebraska and Kansas and Iowa, they have thinking time. They have thinking time that the rest of us don't. You know, and it's 3 o'clock in the morning, their mind's going. And he said, I put it in my neighbor's Model A Ford, like a 1929. The neighbor said, oh my God, this thing's never run this good. So I said, okay, Dwayne. I went home that night, got a syringe, put 6 cc's in. He said it'll take 16 miles. Took 10. The engine was quieter. I didn't have the normal knock I had at 2,800 RPM. I could take it in 6th gear down to 1,000 RPM, ease into that throttle and accelerate away. So now it's in everything I have. Chainsaws, snowmobiles, jet skis, everything, cars, because it makes a difference. It really ignites gasoline. So I called Dr. Jane Gates. I said, what do you think of putting the catalyst in gasoline? She said, I know nothing about that. I said, well, let me tell you, it works, Jane. So,
wow, that sounds like a great product.
Guys with leaf blowers are saying instead of 5 or 6 pulls to start, it'll start in 1.
I got to get me some of that.
Oh yeah, it's awesome
I got
stuff.
to get some of that. Put that in some of my stuff.
If you buy a brand new diesel engine truck, pickup truck, car with a diesel engine, semi truck, and you run that max mileage catalyst in there, you will never have a forced regen or a regen. You'll get a passive regen every now and then going down the highway. Your DEF consumption decreases because you're eliminating 70% of the soot and carbon. If you're running in an older truck, like a 2002 and older, after 90 days, you pull the exhaust pipe off. There's no soot and carbon. You can change exhaust systems and wear a white shirt and be clean.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, that sounds like an amazing product.
Extends the life of variable geometry turbos because there's no soot and carbon to get into the exhaust vanes.
It's putting you out of business.
No,
I'm just kidding.
No, it extends life because now the shop's filled with mechanical things, changing gear ratios and taking 10 speeds out and putting in 13 and 18 speeds, rebuilding engines. And we have more room to do the type of work we want to other than working on emission systems.
Amen. Do you think the OEMs take that in consideration like this?
The OEMs would save themselves millions of dollars if they sold it at all their dealerships and told people to put it in their engines. Forrest Lucas once told me if General Motors, Ford, and Chrysler would put his semi-synthetic automatic transmission fluid in from day one, it would eliminate automatic transmission failures. His cousin ran a Lincoln Town car for over 300,000 miles in Los Angeles as a taxi cab. Never repaired the automatic. Phenomenal stuff, that Lucas automatic transmission fluid. So it's his power steering stop like on N14 Cummins. They were not designed for ultra-low sulfur fuel. So we tell people use Lucas fuel injector cleaner along with the catalyst, and you'll eliminate that skip or miss you have in an idle. You'll eliminate having to change injectors on the N14s. 3406 E and B and C Caterpillars love it. The DDEC 2s, 3s, and 4 Detroits love it because all those engines were designed on real diesel fuel, not ultra-low sulfur fuel.
So to make that adjustment, you got to have an additive.
You got to take what the government has made the oil companies give us and improve it.
Yeah.
So, hey, I got a call from Nick, service manager and parts manager Clearwater, Peterbilt, Clearwater, Minnesota. He said, I want to be a catalyst dealer. I said, Nick, truck dealerships don't want it because it eliminates 80% of your shop work. He said, I have so much shop work. I don't want emissions work. I want to be able to sell a man a brand new Peterbilt, put him on catalyst, and not having coming in and complaining to me. There's other words I wanted to use, but I'll be nice. And complaining to me about always breaking down because of emissions. And it works for him. He puts his customers on the catalyst diet, and he has no emission problems, just like us.
It is a huge problem in this business.
It's horrendous.
We ever since that it's come out, it has been a problem with independent contractors and our guys. We get so frustrated, because even down to dispatch, they get frustrated because you just sometimes, and it's not the driver's fault, you just can't depend on the truck. And then they take it in to get it fixed, and they can't, the place can't fix it.
They can't fix it. They can't get parts. They just keep replacing parts, replacing sensors. And, a lot of sensors don't need replaced. They just need clean. You take the sensor out, you clean it with brake clean, you put it back in, and it's still good. But if you pull the sensor out and you run the max mileage catalyst, there's no soot and carbon on it. There's a slight film. I mean, it's going to be black, but there's no buildup of it.
Do you have some warranty? I guess a lot of guys just buy your products, or I don't know if you have like a shop, people come in and they get their truck fixed. You have some kind of warranty?
Oh, we have we can put 14 trucks in our shop.
Oh, okay.
We don't have 14 mechanics. That's a hard thing to find today.
Oakley Trucking is a 100% owner-operator company. We specialize in hopper bottom, end dump, and pneumatic trailers. We provide the trailer free of charge, and you provide the truck. We have a large customer base that reaches the whole United States as well as parts of Canada. Our owner-operators live anywhere from Texas to North Carolina to Pennsylvania to Wisconsin and everywhere in between, and we get them home weekends. We take it seriously when you join Oakley Trucking because we need you to be successful. Oakley offers great benefits and competitive mileage pay, so you know that when your wheels are turning, you're generating money no matter if you're loaded or empty. We understand that you want to make a good living and that you make our living. We only take on independent contractors, and to be honest with you, we are very particular on who we lease on. You must have a good driving record, good work history, and clean, dependable truck. So if you're interested in Oakley Trucking or just want some more information, you can go to oakleytrucking.com, listen to our weekly podcast, The Oakley Podcast, and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
The general public is in for a rude awakening when the baby boomers retire and there's no more mechanics.
You're right.
I mean, flying here on an airplane, there was this tree-hugging lady in front of me, and I heard her talking to another lady. She's talking loud. She hates farmers because she said farmers are polluting our water that we have to drink. I wanted to lean up and tap her on the shoulder and say, what are you going to eat?
Yeah. I mean, really?
Right? I boat in the Chesapeake Bay. They hate farmers on the Eastern Shore, and that's all farm. They said the fertilizer are running off into the bay, but they're producing food for us to eat. So the general public has their heads screwed on wrong. People in our segment of trucking, we all know what it takes to keep this running. We could eliminate every politician and take a group of the intelligent owner-operators and run this country and do a whole lot better than these politicians
amen to that. I believe that, Bruce.
Absolutely.
I believe that.
We wouldn't be giving away millions of dollars. We'd be improving roads and bridges and everything that keeps this country going.
Amen. I like it.
I mean, there are some phenomenal owner-operators in this world.
We see them. We got them at Oakley.
You do.
We've got some fantastic guys, and I know they use your product too, and brag on it and brag about it.
And let's talk about international. They had a horrible problem with that Max Force engine.
Yes.
People are now buying Max Force engines. We clean the carbon and soot out, put them on a max mileage diet.
Come on.
Problems are gone.
Really?
It was all soot and carbon related. All the problems with that engine. Makes me think about looking at that International right behind you there.
Yeah. Well, anytime I'm not a gearhead. I love doing some mechanic work. I change my own oil. I love doing things like that, but it didn't make any sense to me when they came out with it and said, we're going to put the exhaust back into the engine. I'm like, well, now that don't make any sense. Who come up with that idea?
That's right.
And it has been devastating ever since.
The way you deal with engineers is you don't force them. You don't say, you will do this by this date. It doesn't work that way. There's a lot of R&D. But what you do is you work with them and you say, what is possible? We want to clean up the diesel emissions. What is possible? And let's all work together. You don't come in and you don't strong arm.
Have you ever been asked to work or been asked by these OEM people for your advice?
They've done a lot of things that we developed. Just in the old Big Cam Cummins, myself and several of my employees, we developed over 42 items for that engine. Think about that. We took a factory engine and we developed 42, whether it's a setting, whether it's a different housing, whether it's a different compression ratio, different flow on the injector cup, 42 items. We were able to take a 350 and 400 horsepower Cummins and develop 800 horsepower and have fuel mileage and have life.
Wow.
I used to spend a lot of time at the Cummins plant back in the 80s and 90s. All those engineers, unfortunately, have retired. But I got called into conference room, and they sat me down at the head of the table. We had to wear a coat and tie when we were there. And there's 12 engineers. And I'm looking, and I was younger then. And I thought, I'll bet you guys have some questions for me. They said, yes, we do, Mr. Mallinson. I said, okay. Well, they said, we know what you do. We know how you modify our parts and modify our engines. But we have a question for you. You have the least amount of warranties of anybody in North America. I said, how do you know that? They said, because we look at all the dealers, and we're a Cummins dealer. We look at all the dealers' warranties every month, and you're the lowest. Mm-hmm. I said, oh, that's nice to know. I didn't know that. They said, tell us how you do it. Well, I had to think fast, The rule is you take 3 seconds before you say something and think about it. I said, well, it's like the Playboy bunny theory. Well, that got a smile on her face. Tell us about the Playboy bunny theory. I said, well, let's pretend Mr. Owner-Operator marries an ex-Playboy bunny, and she just absolutely loves this guy. And he comes home after being in his truck all week long, and she greets him at the truck, walks him into the house arm in arm, sits him down in his reclining chair, pulls his cowboy boots off, gives him his slippers, hands him his favorite drink. I don't care if it's orange juice. Hands him his newspaper or magazine or puts the news on, says, honey, dinner will be ready in 20 minutes. Friday evening, they have a nice dinner and they spend time at home and they talk about his week. Saturday, she gets up before him and she goes out and she details the interior of the truck, changes the sheets, takes his dirty clothes out, hangs his new clothes in. And we do have one owner-operator. His wife tells him, you wear this on Monday, this one Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And this guy is cool, good-looking, silver-haired guy, classy guy, dressed well. But I said, then he comes out and he cleans the outside of the truck. Saturday afternoon, they have a nice dinner. They go country western dancing or go to the show. Sunday, they get up, go to church. She has a great meal prepared for him, has all his vegetables and fruit cut up in his cooler. And he leaves 3, 4 o'clock. How do you think he's going to treat that woman? She treats him like a king.
Yes.
He's going to treat her like a queen. Well, what do you think when he pulls into a truck stop? He's got 700 and 800 horsepower. Everybody else is 350, 400, 450. And he parks that truck. And as he's walking into that truck stop to pay for his fuel or take a shower, he turns around and looks at that old A model or 359. And it puts a smile on his face because he loves that truck. He doesn't have to drive fast. He lets people pass him on the level, so he just cruises by them going up the mountain. I said, that truck treats him like a king. He treats that truck like a queen. And the better the man treats that truck, the longer it lives and the better the fuel mileage. Because when you have excess power and you only have to use a little bit of it, the fuel mileage improves. So it's the brain going through the wallet, through the right foot, pushing on the throttle that makes engine life and makes fuel mileage.
That is great.
And that was my story to those guys.
Great story.
And where I got the Playboy Bunny thing is Frisco, Colorado is a restaurant I used to always have breakfast in. I had lunch there one day. And this guy sitting beside me at the bar, this lady who ran the place was an ex-Playboy Bunny, and she hired good-looking girls to be waitresses, and they wore very short, cut-off blue jeans, and they made a lot of tips. You know, this is back in 98, 99. Those girls were walking out of with $250 and $300 tips, working a half a day. So this lady walks by this guy. He's having a Reuben sandwich, and she picks up and French fries. She walks by and she takes a French fry off his plate. He doesn't look up. She comes back, takes another French fry. Third time she goes by, she picks up his sandwich and takes a bite out of it. Now, she's beautiful. Retired Playboy Bunny. Oh, and he doesn't even look up. Well, I'm sitting beside him. And I look at him, I said, doesn't that bother you? This lady that runs this restaurant's eating your food? He said, yeah, she has a lot of guts, doesn't she? I said, I can't believe that. You know, we're talking. And he says, I got to tell you, it's my wife. So, do you remember Candid Camera?
Yeah.
Well, that would have been a great shot.
That would have been a good one.
Candid Camera.
See you on there.
So what I like to do with a guy, you know, you have his truck maybe one day, maybe 3 days, and you do this transformation. And sometimes it's a week. If you're doing a rebuild and you're changing transmissions and rear gears, we do a lot with setting trucks up so they run in direct gear. A lot of 264 gears instead of 355s and 247s. That way, when you run in direct gear, you gain 80 more horsepower and 240 foot-pounds of torque. So you actually shift less. You gain a half mile to the gallon. Your engine's cooler, it's quieter. Your transmission's cooler and quieter. And it's just a lot more fun to drive. Plus, when you're out on like I-70 and coming down off those plateaus in Utah, you can put her back in the big hole and just let her coast at 85 and 90. It's free miles. There's no police out there. There's no traffic, you know, and you get your need for speed going down these slight grades. It doesn't take any fuel. And then you can shoot up the next hill. Man, you hit the bottom of a hill at 85 or 90 mile an hour, you shoot over the top. So, and I'm not saying you do that on every hill, but it's fun to do that every now and then. But you got to gear the truck for that.
Yeah. And
that's a whole nother lesson. But you can talk to all these people that sell gears and replace gears and mechanics and tell them, I'm going to take out 355s and put in 264s. They're going to say, you're going to lose all your pulling power. No, you gain pulling power. And we're down as low as, on a new X15, we want to be down as low as 228 on gears.
Wow. You know, you're just a wealth of knowledge, and it's a great story. We're going to have to cut it short.
I'm supposed to have 20 more minutes with you.
You got more stuff to say?
Oh, I could talk to you for at least eight hours. I
love
talking trucks.
I love listening.
Trucks. I enjoy owner-operators. These shows are a reunion. Hey, an owner-operator that I've known for 35 years walked into my booth yesterday and say, why does everybody in here have gray hair? I said, so do you. I said, because we can't get away from this stuff.
Keep coming every year.
We love it.
Yeah, I do too. It's something we've been doing a long time.
Hey, and I'll tell you, it takes a great staff. You've got to have a successful business. It takes great people. And you go through a lot of people to get to the great ones.
You got some people running your crew. You got some good people, I'm assuming.
I have wonderful people.
That makes the company.
I'm able to be semi-retired, and I work from wherever. I work from Colorado, I work from Florida, work from Maryland, work from Pennsylvania. I can take my phone with me. I can go to Singapore if I want, or or the Bahamas and work from wherever, and it's wonderful.
Yeah. Well, you've done a lot to create that, and I think
Thank you.
that's something that it goes underappreciated sometimes because similar with Oakley Trucking, you know, our owners have created a great system, great people, and it makes you want to. It makes the people under you probably want to impress you. You know, they want to be better than Bruce Mallinson, you know, and that's hard to find.
You know, when you deal with owner-operators, a lot of times they'll complain of the company they're leased to. You never hear a complaint on Oakley. I never hear complaints on Landstar. I never hear complaints on Mercer. And so you remember stuff like this, and you say, you know, I've always wanted to be an owner-operator, but I'm running out of time, right? I just recently almost bought a 99 379 from a friend of mine because I'd like to truck 2 days a week.
Yeah.
I want to truck 2 days a week. But at 74 years old, you have to think, really, you know?
Well, you could try it. I mean, it doesn't hurt to try it.
I had a T600 Kenworth, and I pulled a 39-foot fifth wheel and a 24-foot garage trailer. I was 83 feet long. And I crisscrossed this country working in other people's shops and working at their homes and working RV shows and truck shows. And I had an 18-speed single over 18 and 342 gears and a 500 horsepower big cam 4 350 Cummins in it. And I loved it.
How long you had your CDL?
No CDL.
No CDL.
No, I went for that test. I disagree with how they do a test. You know, they just don't.
You argued with the people that do the CDL?
Absolutely. You know? When you've been doing the same thing your whole life and you see people doing stuff wrong, you have to tell them.
Yeah.
You know, this is wrong. I didn't fall out of the cherry tree yesterday, you know? I know what I'm doing. And so I don't know computers. So I hire people that know computers.
Yeah.
I can do email and type on a computer and bring up pictures and things like that. But
well, you stick with the mechanical part of it. That's what you're good at.
Right.
You're good.
So
with
you ought to
people
come.
too.
Jeremy, you ought to come to our shop.
Yeah, I'd like
spend
to
a day
sometime.
or two. And,
I'd like to learn more about it.
Yeah.
It just sounds fascinating.
It can be an education. We
Yeah.
do shop tours and we give people the 50-cent tour.
Sure.
Not the 25. We give you the 50-cent
I'd
tour.
appreciate that. I would expect that, you know.
We even take you to lunch. We've got a good hole in a wall that has great food.
Okay, I'll work.
Yeah.
That'll work for me. Well, we're going to get out of here, Bruce. I really appreciate it. You know, Pittsburgh Power has got a great reputation. I hear it from our owner-operators about it, and I really appreciate you taking the time to sit down and tell your story. It's a fascinating story. It's a great story, and I'm honored to have this recording and be able to hang on to it for years and send it to you, and you hang on to it and pass it down to whoever you like too, and we'll keep this owner-operator deal going the best we can.
Yeah, absolutely. And anytime you want us to join the podcast, just let me know.
I will do. Thank you a lot. I appreciate you.